What's up, everyone? I'm Rick Knight. Welcome back to another video here at The Bad Philosopher. So, little changes on the show. No longer me just standing there and ranting like a lunatic in front of the camera with a cheesy, corny, fake brick background. Now I'm actually having guests in the studio and interviews and stuff like that. So I'm going to go to my first guest, a good friend of mine, Oleg. Oleg, what's happening, brother?
Not much. Nice to be on the show. Thank you.
Finally, right?
Oh yeah, love what you did with the place, by the way.
Oh,
I think come a long way. For
yeah,
sure.
remember we were talking about starting this show, and I was gonna call it the what was I gonna call it?
The uncomfort
zone.
zone.
Uncomfort zone, right? Because we're gonna have uncomfortable conversations with people. I had all these plans and ideas, and everything pretty much fell through, and then I resulted to using my camera. My phone,
which was actually working pretty
good. It was working pretty good.
Yeah.
It was working pretty good, but I think this is a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
2 camera angles, and now we don't have to be bunched up like this, like we're like lovers or something to fit inside the frame. So what do you think? You know?
No, yeah, there's definitely a little bit more room to gather for sure.
Definitely. So we met in college, right? We had a same class together.
Yeah, we most certainly did.
Which is It's a good thing. I don't really, when you get older, you don't really meet friends like that.
Yeah, you really don't. It just so happens that, 2 like-minded individuals kind of click. And you just kind of, the rest is history, so.
Well, it was kind of easy in the class we had because it was a political science class, so it was like, we were destined to be together.
No, the first class we had ever, I think, was English, I believe.
Was English 24.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember that. And I come in and I see you and Wes in the back, and I'm like, who are these bozos? I'm going to sit with them, And I'm like, well, they got tattoos. I got a few, so am I cool?
Right. I remember. And I was with Wes in English 12, and that's where your ex-girlfriend was.
Yeah, she was.
She was in that class.
Yeah, she was. She certainly was.
Yeah, that was funny. I wanted to tell you the story with the eye thing when she asked me. I know I've been through this before with you, but she says, I remember she says, look at me, and I had glasses on because I was blind from an accident in my eye. My eyes were all messed up. And she was like, what's wrong with your eyes? I'm like, holy shit, you don't just ask people what's wrong with the eyes. I thought it was funny.
Yeah.
So, okay, so what do we have on the topic for today? Well, we were going to talk about the left in colleges, and how many people have you encountered with the leftist mentality, with the radical leftist mentality, and
how many haven't I?
Yeah.
But that's just it. In their mind, they're the true moderates. They're the reasonable folk, and we're just like the far right. You understand? So anybody, like Stephen Crowder says, anybody to the right of Chairman Mao is a white supremacist.
Yeah, definitely. We find ourselves. The thing is, like, it's so easy to call us, a Nazi and a white supremacist.
Oh, absolutely.
It's acceptable.
Absolutely.
It's to them, it's fair. It's accurate. We shouldn't be offended by it. You disagree with them, they call you a white supremacist. Even though I'm Jewish with biracial children. And still, it's like,
doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. I'm a Nazi and a white supremacist. It's like, why are you calling me a Nazi? We're talking about economics. Well, you know what I mean? Like, it has nothing to do. If I don't agree with you on economic policies, I'm also a Nazi. Like,
pretty much.
My favorite baseball team is the Yankees. Does that make me a Nazi? Like, it's insane.
Not yet, but tomorrow.
Yeah. I'm wearing a New York Giants football sweater that makes me a white supremacist because it makes me a bigot because Giants are taller and I have a preference for taller people now or something, and I'm a bigoted towards shorter people or some other crazy mind state with them. Yeah. But they're everywhere.
They truly are beyond parody too. They literally the jokes just write themselves. And here's the crazy thing is, we're not laughing anymore. It's not really funny no more, nor is it cute. It used to be in the beginning, maybe that you could sort of mock the left and they're saying lack of standards, or should I say, the double standards or whatever, and just all the other stupid things that they stand for, things that they claim and whatnot. But now it's kind of like they're just going to numbers and they're really serious. It's kind of like stop it. But no, it's like at this point, like I said, it's truly scary times that we're living in. I mean, without exaggerating a bit, it's I look into it.
But you know what I find with them a lot, because just having conversations with them, they really don't know much, and they're really just
at all.
They're echo chambers for whatever leftist media source that they like to watch, CNN and Fox and BuzzFeed and Huffington Post and whatever spread. Another popular thing that they like to do is they like to repeat stuff they've seen on Facebook and social media, memes and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
And this is their talking points. A meme that they saw on Facebook. I couldn't even tell you how many times in a conversation with them that they, responded with something that I'm like, wait a minute, I saw that. Yeah. I saw somebody passing, those same words in a meme. Like this is where you're getting
from Occupy Democrats or the other 98%.
Right. I mean, you're getting your political information from a meme on Facebook or whatever.
Yeah, but it was shared by like 6 of my friends who are, also went to the Pink Pussy Hat March, so it must be right.
Right. So they really don't have a clue for the most part. At least the young ones that we're in classes with, and they push a narrative that they heard from somewhere else. Absolutely. That sounds good to them.
Absolutely. It's just
they really don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, you could actually almost tell them coming apart and just sort of becoming undone, almost a physical level of a pain, kind of this uncomfort, this intolerance that they feel when they are challenged, where you could literally feel them becoming physically uncomfortable. The lack of eye contact at times, and it's almost like you could cut the tension with a butter knife. The anxiety that they feel when challenged sometimes could be very counterproductive, and it's just hard not to notice these things when they just like. It would be like telling in their mind a lot of what they stand for is as much a fact as 2 + 2 is 4. So when you tell them well, this is really what it is and yada yada, they're just like which is why it's it's not surprising, it's not unusual that they're called NPCs right now, because they're literally like they're like programmed robots, and and it's just it's crazy. It's only a matter of time till
Is that what the meme is about?
Yeah,
that's what the meme is about, calling them a non-playing character.
Yeah, more or less, where they're just literally getting programmed, and there's probably no more fitting a term for them.
Right. When I was putting this together, there's a young kid that was in one of my philosophy classes. A cool kid. His family's from Bangladesh. He's a cool kid. I don't want to say his name. He doesn't want to be on the show or his name or anything like that, because he's planning on a career going into a certain field, and he doesn't want anything to come back around to haunt him later on. So, but he kept saying, "Oh, you got to put an NPC character here. You got to put an NPC character." And I'm like, I don't know.
Well, you might eventually. You can make room for it.
Make room for it, right?
Yeah.
And maybe the frog. I got to put Peppy the Frog on there.
Yeah, maybe.
Right? Why not?
Maybe.
Trigger them some more.
Yeah, eventually maybe you expand this to the whole length of the wall. It's your place. You're the boss.
Yeah. Finally, I'm finally the boss. There's one place I can be the boss, the supreme leader, right here.
Yeah.
Until my landlord kicks me out.
Yeah, there's no place like home. You ain't going nowhere. Plus, we got we got provisions for that. So just use your white privilege card, and
the white privilege.
Pay rent again.
Yeah. Just tell my landlord that I don't have to pay rent because I'm white.
Yeah, exactly.
The white delegation is going to pay
the
rent for me.
It makes sense. So you can't, that's it. You can't argue that. It's facts. It's science. So.
Yep, white privilege. Just hearing it constantly, it's like, this is the problem that they don't seem to understand. When you keep using words like that, language like that, you create resentment. Right? If you wonder why, let's just say, black people, a lot of them have grievances with white people, and I mean, we go back to the 1960s when a lot of them are mistreated, and then it leads to a lot of resentment, and it's like it's understandable. And now here we are in 2019. When we're much more at a level playing field than we ever were. Like we have come, absolutely. We have come, the furthest in our society than we ever have in the past, where we truly have, a constitution for everyone, and we're constantly being told about our white privilege, and if you complain, then you're white fragility. If you try to reason with them, you're mansplaining, and it goes on and on with all these made up words that they made up. And it's like you create resentment, and then you get guys like me, or guys that are even way more influential on YouTube doing this kind of stuff, and then it all builds up, and you end up with someone like Donald Trump in office. So it's like it always backfires. The more you push the other side, the more they push back.
Right, and and the crazy thing is that you really can't win, because you take things like you take the phenomenon of large groups of white people, moving into a neighborhood, right? That's called gentrification. you take lots of groups of white people moving out, and that's called white flight, right? So essentially, you really can't win, and you truly have the crazies running the asylum, right? You got the the loonies driving the short bus. You know what I'm saying? And it's like they're taking us off a cliff and fast, so to speak. So you really there's really no winning. But you know, a lot of people on the left, and I used to be one of them.
Yeah, me too.
Sad to say, but I was, I guess, at a certain point. You know, and I used to go around, and I really fell into the inaccurate notion that you hear often that white people are so lucky that black people just only want equality. You know, and that's it. But it's like, no, that's not true. They just want revenge. But essentially, they want to get revenge on those that have not transgressed them. Meaning, I've personally not oppressed anybody, nor had slaves. I come from, after I wasn't even born in this country, I came from Russia back in '92. And pretty much, if you trace back my lineage, which I haven't quite done yet, but just knowing enough, up until my great-grandparents, I knew that I come from poor Slavic farmers. So if anything, I was likely from a family of indentured servants and poor peasants from my entire no royal blood here, no slave owning ancestry, and meanwhile I'm over here lumped in with the Ben Afflecks because his family did own slaves, as a matter of fact, and so it's just I just think it's silly, but unfortunately there's no going back because. That's it. The train left the track. The train left the station.
Yeah, it's true because most people who have ever lived on planet Earth in human history were poor people. Absolutely. So when you talk about you have resentment for a certain group of people that harmed you in some way, it's like, well, every single person in the group, because the problem is being holding resentment because of slavery. When most people during the slave era were poor people who didn't own, most white people were poor and didn't own slaves. Mm-hmm. So, it's this collective guilt, this collective responsibility that we have to try to make things right when it's like, wait a minute, isn't it a small percentage of people that own slaves versus the larger group?
It doesn't matter because we all benefited.
Which
actually isn't the case because a lot of poor whites actually despised the institution of slavery because
right,
they couldn't compete with no wages.
They couldn't, exactly.
So you
and not only that, but you had a political party, you had the Republicans who fought against slavery.
Absolutely.
You're mad at people over slavery, and you're not mad at the Democrats. Yeah. The historical racism from the Democrats, from the Jim Crow South to slavery. All of this was, the Klan was the Democratic army.
Absolutely.
It was an army for the Democrats.
Fact. And but they fall under the myth that the party switched sides.
Right.
And unfortunately,
that the two sides came together and agreed to switch.
Well, what do you expect when you have a monopoly on school textbooks? What is it, McGraw-Hill, I believe?
Right.
That has a monopoly on these things, and essentially, you're really not gonna dispel the popular narrative of contemporary victimhood because the plight of the minority, so to speak, and maybe some of it is valid. I'm not going to totally take away all their struggles. Obviously, some they have legitimate grievances. The problem is that they've recently become very illegitimate, and they're only extrapolating them, and now they're just making shit up, which is like, hold on, whoa, it's just that's all they have is their plight and their struggle, and they're very eloquent and articulate in their victimhood. And that's not something that will ever end because it's been very successful for them as a resource acquisition. Right? So essentially, as long as the vending machine of white guilt is forever there, it is almost impossible for that button not to get pushed. I mean, it's just, you're talking about going against human nature. This is just basic instinct, right? Which is,
and not to mention they're doing the exact same thing that they hate when anyone else does it. When you generalize an entire group and you put everyone in the same basket, and you hold one person or everyone responsible for what somebody does. It's like if you look at all black people and say, oh well, they're all gang members. It's like no, most of them are not gang members. Exactly. You look at white people, but it's perfectly fine to say, oh, we're all racist.
Exactly.
And we all benefited from white privilege And it goes on, and it's like, if you look at most white people, at least, in this country, most of them are middle or working class people. And it's like they come from humble beginnings, just like everyone else. But then the narrative is, it's their white privilege that enabled them to go from working to middle class or poor class to working to middle or whatever the case may be. And it's not that they actually worked and held a job. It's because of the color of their skin. Somebody just gave them a house. But, to say that we benefited from white privilege, it's like, my ancestors came here from Russia and Poland, and it was the late 19th century, early 20th century that, we came here. My grandfather died at 102. He was born in Manhattan.
Oh, that's the one you told me about, the boxer, right?
Yeah, he was a boxer when he was a young man. And his parents came here. So roughly early 1900, late 1800, we came here from Russia and Poland. And none of us came from wealth. We were all working class people.
Yeah, but you had your white privilege.
But my white privilege, growing up in, here in Brooklyn, in a predominantly black community where we were all on welfare. None of us had a dad in the home. And I went the same route my peers went. Teen dad, high school dropout, criminal record, all of the same nonsense as everyone else around me. But it could have been. It would have been harder for me if I wasn't white. That's what they say. They're like, oh no, white people. We're not saying that you don't work hard. We're saying that you don't have to work as hard.
Yeah, basically
because of the color of your skin. And it's like
we're not saying you don't have struggles, but you'd have been worse off.
It would have been worse if you were black or something. If you weren't white, it would have been even a worse struggle. And it's like it's real insulting to most of us who all we have is our hard work. That's all we have to do anything in life is to work hard at it. And when I look at other people, black, Hispanic, Asian, no matter what they are, outside of the white category, the white group, and we pretty much all do the same thing. We all we get up in the morning, we go to work, we earn a paycheck, we pay our bills, we try to save money, try to get our kids in schools.
Absolutely.
We try to make a life for ourselves and our family. We're all doing the same thing, and it's like, I don't get it. Why do you think they're working harder than me when we're both pretty much doing the same thing? And it's like, well, you don't have to deal with what he has to deal with. And it's like, well, what does he have to deal with? Like, this is not the Jim Crow South anymore. Those days are over. What are they dealing with? Are they being constantly harassed all day long? And according to a lot of them, they are. They're constantly under harassment. And, if it's a few people saying something like that, where they had bad luck and they ran into people giving them a hard time, okay, fine, it happens. But when you get so many of them, and then, the funny part is your political alliance really says how bad you've been harassed for the color of your skin. Because when you meet Republicans that are Spanish or black or another group, they don't mention their oppression and how bad they're treated and how many racial slurs they're called all day long. It's when you meet these, the people on the left, they have so many grievances. Everything, they've been triggered so much. There's so much microaggression around them.
They have a fundamentally different pathology, different mindset.
Yeah,
different
completely different.
Which some people, and I'm not going to get too carried away, but some people actually do believe that there's basis in there's a genetic component to a person's political inclination, political leaning, so to speak. Which I don't know. I mean, I'm no scientist, but I think that the more I observe, certainly the more credible that theory becomes. Because you could have a person that what I mean. It's just like you said that you work hard, this and that. You try to save money, you go to work, you pay your bills. And what you don't realize is that a lot of people that have this profound resentment just for you just because, because of whatever they've been fed or whatever it is they believe, and it's just they will perpetually find a reason to be unhappy, to be miserable and complaining about whatever it is. So they don't acknowledge your hard work, because the reason you're doing better is because you were just given everything just because. Period. And they don't have to have proof of that. They don't have to be able to. Doesn't have to align with reality just because I said so. Just because. And I don't care if you say otherwise. You're a liar. So it's like they don't acknowledge your hard work. They don't acknowledge that there's these avenues that they, channels that they could take to really do better. What they want is it's a lot easier to sit and complain, right, and just collect resources. Same with an example would be these obese feminists, that instead of maybe bettering their situation, maybe instead of walking around with green hair and septum rings and whatnot, and just continuing eating their eating habits, they would rather, instead of better their situation and find a suitable partner, they'd rather change society's terms of beauty. It's easier for them to right. Even though
that's what I mean.
They don't actually have to do any work.
Yeah.
Go to the gym.
Well, I think for a lot of them, it's a psychological block. Mm-hmm. If they can't come to terms with the fact that they're lazy and they make poor health choices. Granted, some of them have
maybe a thyroid or whatever,
right? Yeah. But most of them, that's not the case.
There's medication.
Most of them are not disciplined. Most people who are fat and overweight are not disciplined, and they're very lazy.
Absolutely.
And they're not. I recently lost 45 pounds.
I myself have.
You too. You lost a lot of weight too. I mean, all I did was cut back my eating, change my eating habits, and work out, go to the gym, run, do what I do. And you lose the weight, but instead of doing that, because that's too much hard work, instead they want to change the standards of beauty and get us
society
to look at a big woman and be attracted to her. It's like, I will not be. It's the same thing the trans community is doing with you get some idiots like that, Riley Dennis or whatever hers, they, them's name is, where it says or she or he or whatever says, if you're not attracted to transgender, or if you want to have sex with one of us or whatever, then you're a bigot or a transphobic or something. And it's like, you can't redefine, what makes, the neurotransmitters in my brain go haywire. Exactly. You know what I mean? When I see a sexy woman, this is what's sexy to me. You cannot force me to all of a sudden not be attracted.
That's where you're wrong, bigot. They're going to re-educate you.
They're going to, that's exactly what the point is. It's like, it's not my fault that I'm not attracted to big girls. Throughout human history, if you look at it through an evolutionary standpoint, again, this is just my opinion, but if you look at it through an evolutionary standpoint, right now, and maybe in the last 100 years or so, or 75 years, whatever year it is when you see all of the obesity and big people. Because most of human history, we were smaller, we were thinner, we were shorter.
Absolutely.
We weren't consuming as much calories a day. So we didn't evolve to find big people attractive. It's just most humans did not evolve to think big, fat people are attractive. There are people out there who do like big people, but most of societies across the world
because
are not attracted to big people.
Most men have always been, throughout the history of time, to sort of be programmed to look at a woman with maybe a nice plump set of hips that would be, I guess, suitable for childbearing and whatnot, and all these things that just sort of like they transcend current day culture, they transcend politics. They basically go, you're genetically predispositioned. You're almost hardwired to view things a certain way. It's just like Steven Crowder said that he goes, his member is basically the only thing that's not tainted by political correctness or anything like that. It's unadulterated. So if he sees a pretty woman and he gets turned on, that's just like, I mean, it's fine for the pedophiles and these deviants, to have their preferences. It's okay if they like children. They're not monsters, and that's not a straw man, by the way. They're literally pushing for that. But when a man, an average, cis, white, straight man, doesn't like an obese woman, well, he's just a piece of shit, isn't he?
Yeah. It's because
like,
of our toxic masculinity.
Right. But meanwhile, don't hurt the pedophile. He's not a monster. You're the monster.
Right. You had that woman that. Oh, I don't remember her name. She did the TED Talks, and she was talking about this is Jonah, and Jonah is attracted to children, but Jonah can never live a healthy life, and have a partner that he loves because the partner would be a child, and that's illegal. And it was like this pandering to pedophiles. It's like this is sick. It's sick and twisted to have a sexual attraction to a child.
Absolutely.
It's not normal at all. I mean, to look at a child and think that there's any kind of sexiness to each other. We all have to admit, there's many times in our lives we've seen maybe young girls, 12, 13 years old, and you could see that she's a pretty girl, and she's developing a little earlier in life.
Yeah.
And you're looking and you're saying to yourself, that girl is a few years away from being an adult or an older teenager or something, or you see the high school girls, and sometimes they're a little filled out, and then especially if they're wearing something that they shouldn't.
Earlier, maybe,
they're wearing something that they shouldn't be wearing. That's for an adult women. They shouldn't wear
still,
that.
I would never ever get any sexual ideas.
But still, you don't look at them with the "you're sexy." I want to have sex with you. I want to. You look at them like, okay, in the future, whatever. You know what I'm saying, right?
I would never have any type of malintent. I don't even.
You don't look at them like that, and whatever. Even if girls to guys, you'll see a young boy. He's very athletic, and he's growing, and he appears to be a little older than what his age is. But still, it's like normal women will look at this kid, 12, 13-year-old kid, 14-year-old kid, and say, "Oh, he's going to be a heartthrob," and they could blatantly say it without being creeps. We're creeps if we see a 12-year-old girl and say she's going to be a killer in a couple years from now. Well, we're a creep. But a woman, when I was 12, 13, women used to say all the time, "Oh, with his blue eyes, he's going to be a heartthrob in a couple years. He's going to be," and it's perfectly fine to say that.
Yeah, it's socially acceptable.
It's right. It's socially acceptable to say that, but they're not looking at me like he's sexy now. Yeah, I want to have sex with him right now.
No, true.
It's not normal. It's not normal.
No, I agree. And call me crazy, but that's actually one of the double standards, one of the societal double standards that I more or less don't mind that we have. Because, in other words, I wouldn't want any men looking at 12-year-olds saying, "Oh,
no, not at all." Yeah, not at all.
So, but then again, when I was younger, and my cousin, who's 6 years older than me, who's a girl, had one of her girlfriends that we would always just hang out and maybe go to a cafe, get something to eat, what have you. They were just best friends. They were girlfriends, and sometimes they bring me along to tag along with them. And so she'd sometimes blatantly say, "Oh, girl, if only your little cousin," referring to me, "was a few years older," and I was like, and I loved it, whatever. But that's like, I'm sure that's a little different than if I was a girl and I had an older boy cousin, and he was making moves at me. You know what I mean? Which is why,
right. We don't.
I just feel like this.
Yeah, we don't say it.
Yeah, like there's really nothing wrong. If anything, I was loving it. I was loving the attention. But I think there's nothing wrong with the double standards in society when it comes to certain things. And this is just one example of one that I wouldn't really mind.
Right, because women are never looked at as creeps. Like if I walked over to a woman and I just pulled my dick out to her and flashed her, then I'm a creep. Right. But if you're at a bar or something and a girl stands on the bar and just like whips her tits out in front of everyone, she's not a creep. She's just drunk. She's having a good time.
Exactly.
But you're right. There is double standards in our society that is the norm, and it should remain the norm.
Absolutely, right? more or less.
There will be privileges that that women have over us, privileges that we have over them, and that's just the way it is. But the pedophilia thing is just, it's gross. It really is. It is definitely a psychological issue, 100%.
Absolutely,
it's not normal to be sexually attracted,
to
a child.
And
it's just not normal. And we should not glorify it in any way, shape, or form.
Not even that. It's just, I think it's beyond that. A lot of people nowadays, blatantly you see an encouragement of these things, right? And
well, look at the 11-year-old boy that was on stage in Brooklyn. Desmond is amazing, or whatever they call him. And he's dancing for money in a Brooklyn gay bar. It's like, when did this become acceptable?
And the crazy thing is that it's just there's really no stopping it. I feel like it's
no, because you're a bigot for saying something about it. You're a transphobe and a homophobe for saying that an 11-year-old child should not be allowed in a bar. That's number one. Yeah. Number two, they should not be dancing sexually in any way, because there is a lot of sexuality involved in the whole in drag queens in that whole community, right? It is a sexualization of people, 100%. And he's this little boy is up there dancing, and men are throwing money at him.
Literally.
Yeah, literally, and handing him money.
Yeah. But he's empowered. Don't you want to?
Yeah.
Why are you getting away?
She's empowered.
Yeah.
She's empowered, right?
And the crazy thing too is that you have this general sort of cultural sentiment in contemporary society of make racists afraid again, whatever the fuck a racist is. But basically, at the same time, don't make pedophiles afraid at all. Empower the pedophiles, right? And then, a lot of people that aren't really privy to what's going on in current day might call me a conspiracy theorist. They might call me a loon. They might call me, they might say, "Oh, that's a straw man." Then I don't know what to say to you. But anybody who is conscientious of what's going on, would have to agree that things are, I don't want to say getting out of hand, they've been out of hand for a while now. And it's just, it's only hard to imagine how much worse they're going to get, but I think we have a general idea where this is all heading,
Yeah, definitely not good. It's definitely a demoralization of our society.
No, absolutely.
I think so. I think we're definitely headed, into the future
absolutely.
when when it's just anything goes.
Literally,
it's just anything goes.
Yeah,
it's like going from boxing to having the UFC to having mixed martial arts, and then like up next we're gonna have like real sword fights to the death. You know what I mean? And I'm a MMA fan anyway. I love it, but that's just the analogy I'm giving.
Well, yeah, because basically, so as I was saying, basically once you have a leftist foothold in society, more or less. And the narrative starts shifting to the far left, which it's been doing. Essentially, you see quality of life go down. It's not arguable. It's not up for debate. You see quality of life go down, and you see things really go down the drain quick. And and that could be, I guess, arguable, right? Because generally, what is the left for? Open borders, more immigration. They view race as a social construct. They view gender as a social construct. They are blatantly like frothing at the mouth anti-science, when yet they're
the party of science.
They're the party of science, right? They call the right anti-science, and they point to one or two Republicans somewhere in the middle of the Rust Belt that are evangelicals that may or may not have said some stupid shit, like maybe they hold stupid views on rape or whatever, what have you. I'm not denying that there's a lot of middle Americans, but but they point to those two like they speak for me and you. Meanwhile, they're in droves advocating for, just transparently false notions of what isn't. And yet, do you know what I'm saying? In other words, we're not allowed to generalize at all. But
they generalize us. 100%. Right. And then the same problem that the left has with Christianity and with Republicans who are Christian and hold a very Christian worldly view. They don't have the same problem with people who are Muslim or Islam. The left.
Well, because
they have this unholy alliance with them,
right?
And like they're afraid to criticize Islam for the exact same thing that they're criticizing Christianity about. So in the West, America is probably the most that I know. Well, it's definitely out of all the white countries or countries with a lot of white people, America is probably the most religious, Christianity-wise, right? There's no other country. I don't think there's any European nations that are, have the level of...
Europe embraced secularism way before
Europe, us. Canada, Australia is very secular. So America, we still have a lot of Christians in this country, and there's like a war against them from the left. And I'm an atheist, so to me to point out a war against Christianity as an atheist, it speaks volume. Yeah. The entire Middle East, and even in other countries that are not in the Middle East, in Africa and some in Asia, that are all, the rest of Asia, the Middle East is a part of Asia, but the other parts of Asia, that are all Islamic countries, they're very religious, very, very religious, and, they have...
fundamentalist. So.
Draconian rules. It's not safe to be gay in these countries.
Not at all.
And the left won't criticize that.
Well, that's because most Islamic folks, obviously there's Muslims of all races and creeds, not creeds, races and colors, but predominantly Islam is the religion of the brown man, right? So by de facto, they're more virtuous than you. They're just be quiet, bigot, because they've been oppressed enough. Even though let's not mention that right now as we speak. Today we're speaking in Libya, you can buy an African American for roughly $400.
Right.
As a result of Obama's and Hillary's policy. I repeat, as a result of Obama's policies for destabilizing the region, and as a matter of fact, I think Hillary was Secretary of State at the time. No, it's just nobody wants to talk about these things because Obama could do no wrong. Either, right? But whatever, I'm not going to bring him up because, Obama left, blah, 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 he's irrelevant, not like his actions and policies have ramifications today, but not like I expect any consistency from those on the left. So whatever.
Right.
That horse is beat to death.
You know, he left, but the damage is done. It's like, you know. But, you know, this is something that they do in politics all the time. So when Trump is out of office and the next president comes in, and then when we bring up policies or whatever.
Yeah, they're going to say,
So, well, what does he have to do with it? Because when Obama became president, the argument was between Bush. You know,
absolutely.
You know, it was, well, what did Bush have to do with this? You know, he's gone. And it's like, when Bush came into office, it was like, but what about Clinton? It's like, well, what does Clinton have to do with this? So, yeah, this is an argument everybody has. And
But, you know, I think that the left is a lot more proficient at mastering these double standards. For instance, you know, we bring up a contemporary current event issue where you had the Covington Catholic incident, right? Now you had this kid who was a victim of this, I guess you could say, anti-white mob, right? You had the black Hebrew Israelites, you know, and this is like 2 hours of footage yelling these atrocities at him, and we're very familiar with these people because, I mean, we live in New York, so if you go into the city, at times you find them, you know, standing on
Times Square. You'll find
there's a whole, you know, where they preach like blatant anti.
They have a church in Harlem off of 120th.
Right, where they basically preach
anti-whiteness. Yeah,
in general. I mean,
and you'll see no leftists down there fighting against racism.
Right, they're very anti. Yeah, they're very anti.
They're anti-gay.
Yeah,
anti-gay.
Right.
Yep.
And so basically, we're very familiar with these people. Pretty much these kids that were a victim of them, and then you had this Nathan Phillips come in and essentially beat this drum, 4 inches away from
the kid's face.
The same man's face.
Right.
And basically, so. The general sentiment was, according to all the lefties in a box and the HuffPost and now this and the Huffington Post and all that, they were all like, well, you got to respect your elders. Meanwhile, I mean, Trump is a lot older than a lot of these people there, and where's their respect for the elder? You understand? So essentially, they have no problem. They have mastered the skill, which I give it to them. They have mastered the strategy of using our very notions of morale against us, because most people on the right, and I say this loosely, but most folks on the right generally very reluctant when it comes to confrontation. They're very just just live and let live, right? You got the libertarian crowd, you got the pro-Trumpers. We just want to be left alone, which is really why a lot of folks are supporting this wall, because we could give you all the facts and whatnot, but it doesn't matter. So essentially, these people have mastered, once again, rules for radicals. Saul Alinsky. They've really mastered this inherently Marxist tactic that it's like a bar of soap. It's like just keep slipping out of your hand, and there's really no pinpointing, which is why a lot of folks on the right, the general sentiment is that we're dealing with an enemy that has no morals. Well, you don't really double down on your morals and principles as you handle them, because it's a losing strategy. And
constantly making excuses for people who are perceived to be members of their side. So when you look at what's going on with immigration, you have a lot of illegal immigrants here in the country. You have illegal aliens that sneak through the border all the time, and some of them commit serious crimes. And yet the sentiment still is, that
let them in just because.
Let them in just because, and
they used to search for a better life.
And and we're racist for bringing up the fact that there's a disproportionate number of violent crimes being committed within the immigrant community. Now we're not talking about the illegal immigrants, right? Because typically the ones that come in here through the process are typically good people. They're not they're just as bad as all the rest of the groups that are here, as far as percentage wise of crime, or whatever the case may be. But the illegal ones that come into the country, the gangs, the cartels, sneaking in drugs, weapons, sex trafficking, the amount of crimes, and even the ones that come here and they're just drunks, the ones that are sneaking in here, that are just complete drunks that end up in and out of prison, getting arrested multiple times. They're arrested 3, 4, 5 times. They're deported, 7, 8, and they're deported.
And now they come right back. To deport those because according to the law,
sanctuary cities.
Right. And the truth is, look, I give you a few statistics. There's some just stuff I jotted down, and I hope that the audience listening really does fact check me on this, because last thing I want to do is spread misinformation. I'm not a lefty, right? So basically, you have, even assuming, let's say most of them are good people, which I have no problem going with that notion. Let's say, for example, most of them are hardworking, genuinely kind-hearted, decent people.
Right,
let's say, for example, that be the case. For instance, let me generalize all of them for the sake of hypotheticalness, if that's even a word. Let's say they're all good people. Well, the fact remains that, according to the CIS, which is the Center for Immigration Studies, you have welfare usage among households headed by immigrants from Central America and Mexico, at roughly around 73%. Okay, that means that 3 out of every 4 households are on some notion of public benefits. For those from Africa, about 48%. Those from East Asia, about 32%. Those from Europe, roughly about 26%. Now, when you shout out these statistics, right? It doesn't matter how accurate your information is, right? Or for instance, I'll give you one better. You go to the IRLI.org, which is the Immigration Reform Law Institute, and according to FAIR, which is a Federation for Immigration Reform, so you have the statistic of illegal immigration costing us roughly about $116 billion annually, right? Which is approximately a $16 billion increase compared to previous estimates. So this is just according to a new study by FAIR. So you have Mexico being the 3rd largest remittance receiving country in the world, okay?
Right.
Which isn't really peanuts, but that aside, total of, this is according to 2015, as far as we know, that you have a total of $25.7 billion received in 2015 alone, and roughly about 500 million of that 25.7 billion was predicted to come from sources outside the U.S. So essentially, you have probably a good quarter of their GDP coming from the U.S. in remittances, which is money not spent in our economy, money outsourced elsewhere, and the vast majority of these arguments that you could dispel and you could just read off to people. Once again, it doesn't really concern them because once again, on a visceral level, the policies we are in support of, more or less, will pit them against us just because of the fact that we are for preventative measures to keep more people out that look like them, and so thereby by de facto we will forever be their enemies because we don't care. Right. And why would Mexico be prospering and benefiting as a result of leeching off us be a bad thing? Hell yeah, go Mexico. If I'm Mexican or Central American, why would I not want my country to do well? So therefore, if anything, the more statistics we read off probably further radicalizes them, if that makes sense. So they're kind of like, yeah, this is good. So yeah, we'll open borders. I want to see that number in their mind. I'm guessing they want to see that number go from 25.7 billion. Hey, why not 50 billion?
Right. All that tax pay is expense.
Exactly. And so in their mind, you're not gonna. There's only so much you could reason with unreasonable people because once again, this is on a visceral, genetic, instinctual level of more people like me coming in is good, and you preventing that is bad. You understand? Right. So it doesn't really, and I just, this goes for mostly your civic nationalist boomers out there that pretty much, are very disillusioned when it comes to a lot of what's going on. But unfortunately, this isn't the America that they were accustomed to, the America they experienced, or the America that they grew up in. Right. And it would be. It would be beneficial and it would behoove them and us if we all sort of acknowledged these problems, and these societal ills, because it's not going to go away unless some kind of action is taken. And I don't know, you guys decide what that is, but it's just it doesn't matter how accurate your information is, how updated your how well reasoned, how thought out your arguments are. It doesn't matter to them because
it don't because they can always just shout out racist and Nazi and white supremacist.
And when enough of them,
it's funny because as a Jew, we were always taught that what a white supremacist was someone who hated us.
Yeah,
right. Klansmen, neo-Nazis, Aryan Brotherhood, skinheads, all that. Groups like that were the white supremacists that hated everyone. Now, to the left, a white supremacist is anyone who doesn't agree with them.
Literally.
Or a Trump supporter.
Yeah.
Or a Republican, period. Plain and simple. If you're on the right,
the new MAGA hat is the new hood.
It's the new Klan hood.
Yeah,
so
people really believe that. Yeah.
Supporting your president now makes you a white supremacist. Disagreeing with them, I mean, I'll have a disagreement with them over any issue. I mean, the slightest issue, and it's like I'm called a Nazi. It's like, what do you call me a Nazi for? We're talking about the minimum wage. What do you call me a Nazi for? You know, we're talking about, you know, maybe a policy in foreign relation, or you know, or we're talking about a certain requirements to get into the military or something, or to get into Harvard, and you call me a white supremacist or a Nazi. It's like, this doesn't even make sense. Like, where's the connection? You know, and then, you know, the thing about it is, like, you know, you'll call us a white supremacist while, you know, just berating us for being white.
Literally, yeah.
You know, you'll just berate us and treat everyone else as the virtuous ones because of the color of their skin, while calling us Nazis and belittling us. And it's like, well, you know, maybe you're a people of color supremacist. Maybe, you know, maybe you're a gay homosexual supremacist, and a woman supremacist, and whatever the case may be.
Well, I mean, that's what I ardently believe, because if you look at I guess you could say right-wing Republican, you know, what have you, policies just throughout the years. Essentially, you know, a lot of conservative talking points, as accurate as they may be, have really just been proxies, more or less, for white interests.
All right, we're back on. We have to stop the video and replay it and re-record and everything. I can't run straight through one long video because I have such problem. I'm learning all of this technology stuff all by myself. It is. I mean, I have a friend or two that helps me, but it's like I'm very limited in their help. It's like this is how some of them help me. They're like, oh, what's the problem? Oh, you don't have good sound. Oh, go to YouTube and watch a video on sound. Yeah. That's like the help that they give me, but but I made it this far. So what were you saying?
Oh, that's right. No, I think I was referring to you know, for a while now, you know, in the political, you know, dichotomy of things, that you had a lot of conservative, Republican, right wing, whatever you want to call it, talking points as seen as essentially proxies for white interests. And it wasn't until recently that they're really trying to put a stop to that. It's really no coincidence, I think, that a lot of that Southern, you know, culture and the rebel flag and all this is really being, what's the word, vilified, I guess you could say. And I'm sure some of the grievances they have and some of the criticisms and arguments are probably legitimate, absolutely. But when it's just remove your shit just because, you know, no vote, no whatever, just get rid of the monuments, get rid of the flags, get rid of the this, get rid of the hats, right. Stop supporting. At this point, they're, you know, bullying and strong arming half the population into just giving up their beliefs, which is standard textbook definition of fascism. They're the true fascists. Yeah, and it's getting to a point where they're literally making you pay tooth and nail. For now, it's just a digital gulag, you know, that they're throwing you when you get fired, you get doxxed, you could what have you. This is just 2019 warfare. But rest assured, you know, this is just the beginning. This is just the tip of the iceberg. You know? Yeah, for sure. And you know, they're so concerned with tearing down history and rewriting it and tearing. You know, they want to tear down monuments and all this stuff, you know, because of what it represents. But yet they don't want to tear down the entire Democratic Party for what they've done in history. For, you know, it was the Democrats responsible for the Jim Crow South, for slavery, for the creation of the KKK, for all that stuff. This was all Democrats. And no aim is towards them at all. They're so focused on race and gender. They also don't want to tear down the legacy of Planned Parenthood, when Margaret Sanger openly said that she wanted to eliminate the black race by having abortions and letting the women abort babies. And still to this day.
And still to this day. They still make up the largest numbers, percentage-wise, of women getting abortions in this country. You know, it's sickening how they've been just hoodwinked completely in every way you can think of into hating us, completely hating us. All of us. They have deep resentment for all of us, just for us existing.
And you know, and I would agree with you, but the problem with the approach you took, where basically you just, you know, stated, oh well, why don't they just, you know, have a problem with the Democrat Party, yada yada and so on. Well, I mean, they do, even though they probably de facto identify with a lot of the policies of the Democratic Party, because for a while now, Democrats have essentially flip-flopped and betrayed their, I guess you could say, predominant stock. Right? So pretty much they're now against white interests collectively, and pretty much that's why they're bringing in, you know, these people as a whole, saying, we represent your interests. We're going to take from Whitey, we're going to give to you. And so, essentially for the time being, that might work, but a lot of these people, they really largely don't care. The problem with the Dinesh D'Souza approach about, it's the Democrats that are responsible, they're the real racists, is that's really going to get played out quick, if it's not already, because they don't care that you're Democrat, you're Republican, you're white, you have more than me because I was stopped institutionally, and therefore I'm worse off, and you transgressed, and therefore you must die, you must pay. It's time for revenge, chicken's coming home to roost, give me your shit, just because. And that's it. They really don't. They don't care that you're Republican, you're a Democrat, or they're the real racist or not. They just, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, pretty much. I don't think there's any stopping them at this point. I don't think there's any stopping them, and I think it's only going to get worse as the years go by. They're just going to come up with new terms. I mean, look at all of the words that is thrown around constantly. I mean, I can't even tell you how many times I had to deal with words like microaggression and white privilege and white fragility and mansplaining and it goes on and on. Black people can't be racist because racism is all about power and all the nonsense that comes out of the universities to the students, and then from the students online, and then the news media jumps on it and starts using the same language. And it's kind of sickening. It's kind of sickening. It really is. There's no argument from the left. It's like their argument is very childish. It's just every single time I debate with one of them, and you just listen to what they're saying and just take note that everything that comes out of their mouth came from a meme that they seen on Facebook.
More or less.
Everything they say was a meme that was shown on Facebook. Everything. Yeah. And it's like, that they're so lost. You have, half of them are socialists. They don't know why they're a socialist. They don't know what real socialism is. Yeah, they don't. They think it's some fair system. They think socialism is just leveling the playing field, right? What we're gonna bring.
It's not equality, it's equity.
Yeah. So it's all about equality, and it's like, no, it's what is fair is not equal, and equal is not fair. Exactly. We are not. Me and you are not equal.
Exactly.
Right?
We have different capabilities. Right?
We have different capabilities. Exactly. We're equal under the law and under the Constitution.
Exactly.
But we have different capabilities. We're not the same, because if that's the case, then I need to be in the NBA now, because it's not fair. Yeah. It's not fair that short people like me can't play in the NBA. Yeah. It's not fair that people in my age group can't play in the NBA.
Yeah, why should I collect retirement right now?
Right, exactly. So, but they don't understand that, and it's like every argument they have, you can easily compare it with another, I don't want to say an extreme, level of it, but if it's not fair that one group gets to make a lot of money and the next group gets to make a lot of money, then it's like, well, we can go on and on and on about what's not fair. And you understand what I'm saying? It's just
who gets to decide what's
fair.
Who
gets to decide exactly what's fair. And it's like when you leave people alone and you let them profit or advance their lives or their career or whatever the case may be based on what they're capable of doing, that is the most fair thing you can do.
Well, different birds build different nests.
Yeah.
Pretty much. And essentially, I just think that the world would be a better place if we all came together and acknowledged our differences and learned to celebrate them, rather than, you know what I mean? Like, there's things that all groups, do better than others, right? And it's fine. But the problem is once you start putting a taboo on the truth, and it's just, they're literally leaving us no choice, because, when you're being censored left and right, it's really a recipe for inevitable war, more or less, right? I mean, there's no better way to ensure civil unrest than prevent people from speaking,
right?
Heavily taxing them, banning them from speech, from celebrating their identity, and in a multicultural society, truly everybody should be free to celebrate who they are, except certain groups are being deprived that. And so essentially, you're having and like you said, you're right. There really is no stopping it, because the sheer momentum that has already picked up. Even just to take a look at the Covington Catholic incident, which now we obviously know that we've been known all along. those that jump to conclusions hopefully should feel stupid and
Right.
end up with a foot in their mouth, but no, because a lot of
No,
people
they're
go
doubling down.
And
They're doubling
the sad
down.
thing is-
I did a video about the lawyer. There's a lawyer from Vegas, Robert Barnes, and he is going to represent the kids for free, and he is going to sue all of the people that spread false information about the event and about the students and the people who are trying to dox the young man involved.
I'm not trying to dox. They did dox.
They did dox, right?
And like Kathy Griffin with the checks.
He said about 50% of the people apologize and retract their statements, and the other 50%
But too little,
did
too
it.
late. It was a half-assed apology. Instead of saying,
Yeah,
we
yeah,
apologize, what we
yeah.
did to these kids is wrong, they might have said something like, well,
And
now
then-
we have more details emerging.
And then what they do is they the whole story just it balloons so fast, and then once everyone saw that a retraction is in the future, they just swept the whole story under the rug, and they don't
a lot
want
of
to
them
talk about it no
blatantly
more.
deleted the text.
They
The
just
internet
deleted it.
never forgets.
Right.
And,
But the problem is the general public does.
Yeah.
And the general public quickly forgot that everyone who spoke about it against the kids was wrong.
Exactly.
They were completely wrong about what happened.
They forgot, yeah.
But they don't know that.
Yeah.
They don't know that because BuzzFeed and Huffington Post and Vox,
And
they're not
others.
talking about how they made a mistake.
Yeah.
You know, they ran with the first story. Then once it came out that these kids actually didn't do anything wrong, they
did. He was smirking while white.
Right. You were wearing that hat,
Yeah.
which means you're wrong. You have
Yeah.
you have a MAGA hat. You're wrong. That's that. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
And look at the sheer speed at which these people mobilized.
Yeah.
I mean, it came out and it was just like boom, and it was just like wow. It was almost like it was very unsettling.
Not to mention that you had
Sure.
the Israelites down there who yelled faggot
Oh, yeah.
or whatever
Oh,
said
oh.
he's,
Yeah.
and no one is there calling them out for their anti-gay speech, for hate speech.
Absolutely.
No one is there saying that what they
Yeah,
said
and
is
then
hate
you have
speech.
people like Tim Wise saying, well, the Israelites weren't really representing, anybody. It's just, truth be told.
Tim White, yeah, he's another coward, and he won't dare stand up and criticize the Israelites.
Oh, no, of course not, because, he's made a nice and handsome career.
Right, being a race
profiting-
baiter, right,
being a race baiter.
being a self-loving white
Right,
liberal.
exactly,
Mhm.
but he's not really white. He identifies as Jewish, so in his mind,
Yeah.
I'm not like these other white people. I'm in this camp. But whatever, and then truth be told, it's really sickening. It's disheartening. It's awful. It's atrocious, and it's egregious, really, what's happening. And it's just at this point there really is no turning back. So
No, and it's going to get worse. I fear that they're going to push it to a level that none of us are familiar with or even comfortable with. I mean, we spoke about pedophilia. That's coming. That's right around the corner. It's right around the corner.
It's already.
From them fighting for acceptance. It's right around the corner. From people demanding that the legal age gets lowered. Not only are they going to fight for the legal age to get lowered, but they're going to fight and say that it should be accepted as moral, good morals to date someone who's that young and to have sex with people that young. It'll be pushed as a moral issue against us, as if we're the immoral ones for saying no, you cannot have sex with a 12-year-old child. You cannot do that. It's not moral.
Yeah, that's really where where it is,
Yeah.
and that's really what happens as a result of all this media, sentiment of make everything wholesome, traditional, conventional, taboo, and everything basically everything backwards. Just that's what happens when you get browbeaten into submission, more or less. And it's just something about the majority that allows this to take place.
People like that, I have to ask them if they wouldn't mind me dating their 9-year-old daughter. And how would it feel when the shoe was on the other foot? You know what I mean? Is it okay if I date your child then?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. You may be surprised now.
You'll be surprised with their answers. Some of them might answer with
for the sake of consistency.
Okay.
They might say, like I'll give you a recent example. Well familiar with the recent murder of Molly Tibbetts, right? So I just wrote down a little, just a little anecdote that actually happened. Maybe this might surprise some of you, but you had the father of the slain girl, Robert Tibbetts, and basically after her murder, was uncovered, and of course you had a lot of people, on the right, rightly so, condemning it and saying this guy should never have been here in the first place because he was an undocumented alien. It was illegally in the United States. I quote verbatim, the father of Molly Tibbetts goes on to say on public record that the Hispanic community are Iowans. They have the same values as Iowans, he said. As far as I'm concerned, they're Iowans with better food. Now, this is cuckery to ungodly levels. So, if we're not seeing any type of rage or any type of passion, I guess, from the father of a slain girl. Now, imagine he probably represents a lot of people. I would assume. So you'd be surprised at some of the answers you get.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right.
Which is why I say that you can't really reason with unreasonable. They would literally sacrifice. No sacrifice is too big for them to put on that platter of multiculturalism.
I'm guessing the father was just trying to keep the peace and say, let's not demonize all people of Hispanic descent because of what this man did. And I get what he's saying. He's right. We all need collectively. We all need to stop demonizing someone. An entire group based on what a smaller group does, whatever.
Absolutely.
But it's just the fact that your child was just killed by an illegal immigrant, and you're pretty much, almost